Yeah, I think this needs more mags. What's up, guys? KS here. Thanks for joining me today, as always. When Wesson Combat set out to create a high-performing and top-tier carry gun, they achieved their goal. The EDC X9 was developed as a hybrid 1911 that combines the trigger and accuracy of a 1911 with what Wesson calls the X-frame, which is absent of the traditional grip safety. One cool thing about the frame is you can tailor it to your specifications depending on the size and shape of your hand. It's a clear advantage of going with a custom manufacturer. In a moment of transparency, I've handled the Wesson Combat EDC X9 several times over the last 6 or 7 months and wasn't quite sure what to think. Aside from the jaw-dropping price, which we'll get to later in the review, the grip is wide and the styling is, for some, a bit over the top. It's designed to be a full-time carry gun, but it weighs over 35 ounces loaded, which isn't the end of the world, but definitely on the stout side. There's more, but I don't want to give it all away in the intro. Let's dive in and see if the EDC X9 lives up to the hype. Before we get on with the review, I just want to give a big shout out to my buddy Harry over at Harry's Holsters. He loaned me the Wesson Combat to have a little bit of fun with and provide my thoughts to you. You guys know I run exclusively with Harry's Holsters. I absolutely love them. I've got a discount code down below if you want to wander over to his site, and yes, it does help the channel. So go on over there after the video if you like. Otherwise, on with the review. Alright, let's do a couple of quick side-by-sides with the Wesson Combat against a few other popular firearms. Now we're going to do something, or take a look at something that's very similar to the Wesson, but before we do, I thought a lot of people would be curious to see how it stacks up against another very common carry gun like this Smith & Wesson 2.0C. Now this is the 3.6 inch, just so we're on the same page. So when we line these guys up, and I was surprised at how close these guys are. Now that Wesson Combat's going to be 7.4 inches long, and it's going to be 5.25 inches tall. Stacks up very nicely to that M&P. I really think so. Now it's a 4-inch barrel on the EDC, and it's going to be 1.4 inches wide, so a little bit wider than the M&P because of the safeties, which we'll talk a little bit more in detail in a moment. Now it's 29.09 ounces unloaded and 35.04 ounces loaded. So the Smith & Wesson, we're talking a little bit more like 25 ounces unloaded and a little bit more around the 30 ounce loaded. So definitely a weight difference, but it's actually not that much. Now another gun that's getting a lot of press right now is the STI Staccato P. We are going to be taking a look at this gun at a later time, but again, I thought it'd be a very interesting lineup. Now I really want to be careful not to smash these guys together too much. Again, that Wesson Combat is not mine. So again, these guys line up pretty darn well. That STI is just a little bit longer, and I think it's going to be wider, especially with the magwell, but they do stack up pretty close. A little more going on with the STI. We might do an if I could only have one between these two guys at a later time. We'll just see how time goes. But again, very interesting stuff. A couple of heavier, but I think growing in popularity carry guns. All right, let's take a look at the features of the frame of the Wesson Combat. Now, nerd alert, this is going to take a little while. There are a lot of features to talk about. We always start with our grips, and these are going to be G10 grips. It's a starburst pattern. I love these grips. They are just the right compromise between aggressive and not so aggressive that they're going to beat you up. I mean, they're very comfortable, very well done, very nice styling as well. And then when we get to our front and back straps, these are going to be the X-Tac checkered pattern, whatever you want to say. And I love that they blend in with the grips. And they not only look fantastic, they feel great as well. They're not too sharp, but they definitely offer a lot of bite for your grip. I love it. We've got a little bit of a contour as we move down the grip as well. And then for our magazines, it does come with a couple of 15-round steel magazines. Nothing terrifically special about these, but they did a great job. They definitely did. And there is a little bit of a magwell, which is always difficult to capture on camera. I'm wheeling in some other pictures, but it's a nice magwell. It allows for easier magazine insertion. And then there's just a little bit of a lip on the bottom of the magazines in case you have to strip them out for malfunction. So very thoughtful on that as well. Now, as we move up on this, one thing you'll notice that is absent, even though I said this is basically a 1911, there is no grip safety at all. That's actually really cool. I think they were able to get away from that particular part of the manual of arms. And the function and the reliability, from what Wilson claims, is elevated just a little bit because of that. So very interesting. It's nice and smooth up here. If you guys know, I did an STI Staccato C video not too long ago, and my only real gripe with that was a couple of sharp edges that came along the grip safety and the thumb safety. This is absent of that, so very thoughtful. And speaking of, we do have our thumb safety. A couple of nice ambidextrous paddles right here, and I'll tell you what, this safety is nice. It's responsive, works very well, and of course you would carry this cocked and locked with the safety on. So in terms of controls, we do have our magazine release right here, nothing entirely too special. Now they call it a bulletproof magazine release, which is interesting, and then they also call the thumb safety and the hammer bulletproof. So I don't know that they're really bulletproof, might just be the title of them, but interesting nonetheless. And then we do have our slide stop, slide release, although I would say more slide stop here, and the reason I say that is because it's actually pretty far forward on the frame. So even though my thumb kind of barely grazes it, I really couldn't use it. So you could definitely use your support thumb if you wanted to, or an overhanded rack. And then this also serves as your part of your takedown assembly or disassembly. And we will get to that here in just a moment. And then forward on the frame, we do have our accessory rail for lights, lasers, tiny ninjas, things like that. It's very nice. Some interesting millwork down here on the bottom. Actually reminds me a little bit of a Beretta. I probably shouldn't say that on camera, but it kind of does. And then there is no texture on the front of the trigger guard, not that big of a deal, but interesting nonetheless. And then we do have our adjustable trigger. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But like I said, man, there is a lot going on with this frame. I feel like they've kind of thrown the kitchen sink at it, and I think they've done a great job with it. Like the frame, there's a lot to talk about with the slide. Now, one thing you'll notice right off the bat, of course, is it's a stainless slide. Now, admittedly, if this were mine, I would go with their black, or it's kind of a dark gray slide. I think that's a little bit better look, but it's all about personal taste. And I'll tell you what, this will definitely get some attention at the range. People will want to know what you're shooting. I actually experienced that a couple of times while I did my filming there. Now, you'll also notice they carried forward the X-Tac design from the front and rear straps of the frame to the slide. And once again, they look fantastic, and they are ultra functional as well. Same thing on the back. I mean, really nice design and extremely functional there. So it's a good look. It's got good functionality as well. And then they did a little bit of millwork going up. Now, admittedly, it's kind of angular. It's not very rounded, but it actually works with this. I think it does. It's eye-catching, and I think it's well stylized. And then the back of the slide, we've got some interesting serrations as well. It kind of breaks up the glare a little bit. And again, it's just more attention to detail, a little bit finer millwork there as well. So very interesting slide design. And as we go up with the sights, it did come with front fiber optics. This is actually a pretty small post here, and it's got some serrations in front. And you'll notice as we move back on the slide, there's some really nice serrations here to help reduce glare. And I'll tell you what, with a stainless slide, you need it. And it keeps going, and we've got a nice Wilson Combat logo, and then we get to our rear sights, and this is totally blacked out rear sights. See if the camera can focus on that a little bit. So serrated, I love the Wilson Combat rears, and they're actually adjustable for elevation, not for windage, from what I read. And I did not mess with the sights. Again, this is not my gun, but they proved to be fine. And there's enough of a gap between the rear sight and the front post that you've got a little air between I guess, both sides, and that works out really well. It keeps that target in picture. And then one other thing to point out, get that safety off, is going to be your bull barrel. Check this thing out. This thing is awesome. We've got a target crown there. Very nice look on that. And then a little bit more of a fluting design here as well. So really cool design, really cool look. There's another look at the front as well. I think it all locks up and just matches and looks really nice. Very photogenic and a really thoughtful design. So I've been very impressed with how Wilson Combat has put this thing together. All right, we're going to disassemble the Wilson Combat EDC X9. Now, this is about the third take doing this. I'm not very fond of taking 1911s down on camera. It's always a little bit of a challenge, but basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my slide back until I line up my little hole on the disassembly lever, and I'm actually pushing on the other side. There's a little button right here. You push and it starts to get that lever moving through, and then I'll take a little bit of pressure off the slide and the lever pops right out. Now here's the cool thing. The slide is not going to go flying. You'll notice that I'm really not holding on to it, so it's not going to go flying. But what I do, I actually take my hand and I hold on right here and move the slide off, and all that does is make sure that the recoil spring and guide rod don't just go flying away. And then you'll notice it's going to sit not too big of an issue there, and we'll just pop it right out. Now you'll notice, again, I don't make this look very cool. There's a little cap right here, and this helps keep that spring and guide rod in place. And then we'll take our barrel out. We'll just push this forward, and the barrel comes right out. So again, I don't make it look very cool, but it's actually not tough to take apart. And if you guys don't know, I'm sitting about 2.5 feet from the table, so it's pretty good reach on this as well. Now, the interior of the slide is incredibly easy to clean. Of course, it's stainless steel. That helps a lot as well. But there are no tough to reach areas on this. And Harry, I've tried to clean this as much as I can for you, buddy. Spent some extra time. Thanks again for the loaner. So hopefully it'll be nice and pretty for you when you get it back. But again, very easy to clean. And then we've got our frame. Take a look at these rails. These rails are nice and beefy for sure. Look on both sides there. Again, otherwise pretty standard 1911, nothing else entirely too special. And we'll just take a look at this barrel one more time. Look at the fluting on this. And again, our target crown. I mean, God, man, this is a real barrel right here. And then throwing it all back together, we are going to reverse the process. We're going to get our barrel back into the slide, make sure that it sits properly just like this. So now we've made room for our guide rod and spring, but we need to get this cap back in first, because that's going to hold everything in place. So it's going to sit like so. And then we'll get our guide rod and spring assembly. Now, one thing with a lot of these, when you take them apart, that spring and guide rod, they want to fly out. Now, this one I haven't noticed to be the case. I mean, it does want to pop up a little bit, but you can always hold it with your hand like this. I recommend doing that just so you don't get surprised. And then I got to make sure that I get this on camera. All I'm going to do is get the frame back on, and we move it forward. So now we'll get our disassembly lever back in place. So you just want to line up your holes, and actually this one's really easy to do. And the only thing that we want to avoid is the idiot scratch. So I'm going to put this basically in place, and I'm going to adjust my slide just a little bit, and you'll notice that starts to pop in. We're right about there. All right, we're back. Edit mark. I just had to wipe the hands off a little bit because they were oily. So now I'm going to line my holes back up, and then this will just pop right back in. I mean, incredibly easy. This probably is one of the easier 1911s to take apart. So there you go, guys. There's the disassembly of the Wilson Combat EDC X9. The shooting experience with the EDC X9 was awesome. The X-Frame really is incredibly ergonomic, though if I were ordering one directly from Wilson, I'd go a size smaller. It's admittedly on the thick side. Even still, the grips and checkering not only look cool, they lock your hands firmly in place. The fiber optic sights aren't necessarily my favorite for a carry gun, but they do allow very accurate shots when taking your time. I do, however, love the serrated blacked out rear sight that shows just enough space on either side of the front sight to have a full target picture. The recoil impulse is very soft, and there's little muzzle flip, allowing for ultra-fast follow-ups. I gotta say it again, this thing is fast. My only real complaint with the X9 is the slide release. It's just far enough away that I can't use my dominant thumb, so I either have to use my support thumb or an overhand rack. It's a minor gripe with an otherwise stellar shooter. All right, let's take a look at the trigger on the Wilson for a moment or two. I'm actually really excited to show you guys this. Now, right off the bat, you'll notice there are some nice serrations on the front. It's a very comfortable trigger. And then that little hole at the bottom, it is adjustable. Now, it's, again, not my gun, so I have not done anything to it. It's been just fine for me, but there is a little bit of customization that you can do. But it all comes down to the trigger pull, and right there is our take-up. That's it. Not a lot, just enough dead air to where you get to your wall, and then your brake right there, and it's coming in dead on at 3.5 pounds every time I pull it on the Lyman gauge, which is great. I mean, it just feels awesome. And then our reset right there. Very short reset. The travel on this trigger is exceptionally short both ways. Now, of course, we'll do this one more time, or maybe two. There's your take up. There's your break. Crisp, light, smooth. And then our reset right there, and our follow-up shot. The travel on this trigger is such that I'll tell you what, this thing screams to go fast. There were a couple of times at the range that the trigger finger just started going, and it was awesome. So guys, what do I think of the Wilson Combat EDC X9 overall? Overall, I love it. As I said in the beginning of the video, I was really on the fence as to whether I would take a look at one of these and get into it. Again, we'll talk about price here in just a moment. But thanks to Harry's Holsters, I've had the opportunity, and a huge shout out to him. It is a wonderful gun. There's so many great things to like about it. The G10 grips are fantastic. The front and back strap checkering on it, not only is it beautiful, but it's functional as well. I did say I would prefer a slightly smaller grip all the way around, but this still served well. And the overall contours are awesome. Now, the slide, it's stainless. I'd go with the black or dark gray, whatever it is, and that would be my preference, but the stainless still looks good, and those front and rear serrations and the sights are awesome, and that trigger, that 3.5 pound adjustable trigger, is an absolute dream. Now for the price. The base price on this is $2,895. So yes, it is a premium price for a premium firearm without question. And I think that's the one thing that might prevent some people from putting this in their hands. It's too expensive for me as well. There's no question in my mind. I don't think I could pay that for this, but a lot of people do. It's a popular firearm. They're hard to find. So clearly there is a market for it. But again, it's pretty expensive. Overall, I love the thing. And Harry, you might not get this one back. Sorry, brother. It's just the way it is. Well, guys, be sure to sound off down below. Let me know your experience with the Wilson Combat EDC X9 or other like firearms. You guys know I love talking with you guys in the comments. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you next time.